My husband's brother slept in the living room, but I heard him crying my name. I never thought I'd find myself whispering someone else's name in the dark. But that night something changed. My husband's brother Ryan had been staying with us for a few weeks. Nothing unusual at first. Just a family visit after he lost his job and needed a place to stay. We made up the couch in the living room for him. He kept mostly to himself, quiet and polite, always offering to help. Honestly, I barely noticed him most days. But that night, I heard it. I was half asleep, wrapped up in a blanket of silence when I heard it, my name. Soft, broken, like someone was in pain. I froze. It wasn't my husband. He was snoring beside me. No, the voice came from the living room, from Ryan. First, I thought maybe I was dreaming. But then I heard it again. Anna. His voice cracked like he was holding back tears. Why would he be crying my name? I crept out of bed, heart pounding in my chest. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing. Through the dim glow of the nightlight, I could see his silhouette curled up on the couch. Should I say something? Wake him? Pretend I didn't hear anything? Ryan hadn't shown any signs of struggle, not on the surface. But something about the way he said my name that night sent a chill through my spine. It wasn't just sadness. It was something else, something deeper. I should have turned back. I should have just walked away. But instead I took one step closer. And that's when he whispered it again. And this time he wasn't asleep. That's the moment everything started to unravel. My breath caught in my throat. I stood there frozen, barely a few feet from him, and I knew he wasn't dreaming. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling but distant. Like he was stuck somewhere between reality and something he couldn't escape. He didn't see me, or maybe he did and just didn't care. The way he said my name, it wasn't romantic, it wasn't pleading. It was almost like he was begging for something I couldn't understand. I stepped back quietly, careful not to let the floorboards creak, and returned to the bedroom with a head full of questions. My husband, Mark, slept soundly, unaware of the strange moment I had just witnessed. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. Why was Ryan crying my name? We hardly even spoke. I had been nothing but polite, like any host would be. We never had any sort of deep connection, at least not from my side. The next morning I watched him. Ryan acted normal. Smiled faintly when I handed him his coffee, thanked me when I served breakfast, even joked with Mark about something on the news. It was as if nothing had happened, but I couldn't stop watching him. His eyes were red, and I noticed the way his hands trembled when he lifted his cup. He hadn't slept, or if he had, it wasn't peaceful. Over the next few days I tried to act normal. I didn't want to come off as paranoid. Maybe he was just struggling emotionally. He'd lost his job, moved cities, and now he was crashing in his brother's house. But still, the way he looked at me sometimes, like he knew something I didn't, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. One evening I overheard him on the phone. His voice was low, almost whispering. I caught only fragments. I can't tell him yet. It's not the right time, she doesn't know. That night, when I walked past the living room, he was already lying down, eyes closed. But just as I reached the hallway, he spoke again, barely above a whisper. Anna, I'm sorry. And just like that, my heart dropped. Sorry for what? The word sorry hung in the air like a weight I couldn't shake off. I didn't respond. I just stood there, listening to the silence that followed. I didn't even know if he knew I was there. But something about that moment told me, whatever he was sorry for, it wasn't small. And it had something to do with me. The next day I couldn't focus. I burned the toast, left the laundry half done, forgot to reply to a client email. My mind kept going back to that voice in the dark, those strange whispers on the phone. I told myself maybe I was overthinking, that I was making drama out of grief or stress. But deep down, something told me this wasn't just about Ryan losing a job or needing a place to stay. There was a deeper reason he was here. And he was hiding something. That evening, Mark invited a couple of friends over for dinner. Ryan mostly stayed quiet, smiled when spoken to, helped clear the dishes. I tried to read him, but he never once looked me in the eye. Not even once. I couldn't tell if he was ashamed or afraid. Maybe both. After everyone had left and Mark went to bed early with a headache, I found Ryan sitting alone outside on the porch. He was staring out at the dark yard, the glow of a cigarette barely visible in his hand. I hadn't known he smoked. When he noticed me, he stiffened but didn't say anything. I sat down a few feet away, careful not to crowd him. "Ryan," I said gently, "is there something you need to tell me?" He didn't answer right away. Just exhaled slowly, then said, "There's a reason I came here, Anna. But it's not what you think." I waited. But that was all he gave me. No details.
No explanación.
Just another loose thread in a growing knot of questions. Later that night I couldn't sleep. So I got up and went through the hallway quietly. Mark was snoring. But as I passed the guest bathroom, I saw the door slightly open. Inside, Ryan stood in front of the mirror, holding something in his hand. A photo. Of me. Alone. From years ago. Before I ever met Mark. I froze in the hallway, barely able to breathe. The photo in his hand, it wasn't just any photo. It was one I didn't even remember giving to anyone. I was standing alone at a train station, looking off into the distance, headphones in, a book in my hand. It was taken long before I met Mark. I had no idea how Ryan could have gotten it. My legs felt weak, but I stayed hidden, watching as Ryan stared at the image like it held answers only he understood. He whispered something under his breath, words too quiet to catch. Then he slowly folded the photo and tucked it into his wallet. My heart thudded in my chest. What was going on? Why did he have that picture? Why hadn't he ever said anything? My mind started spinning with memories, trying to recall any moment where our paths might have crossed before I met my husband. But there was nothing. At least nothing I could remember. The next morning I couldn't pretend anymore. I was quiet at breakfast, distracted. Ryan barely looked at me. And Mark, he noticed. "Everything okay?" he asked, reaching for the butter. I nodded quickly, mumbling something about a bad dream. But I could feel his eyes on me, confused, maybe even a little suspicious. Later, while Mark was out running errands, I finally confronted Ryan. He was in the kitchen washing dishes like nothing was wrong. "I saw the photo," I said quietly. He stopped scrubbing. Didn't turn around. Just stood there, water running over his hands. "You need to tell me the truth," I said. "Why do you have it? How long have you had it?" He turned slowly, drying his hands with a towel. His face looked pale, drained of whatever strength he'd been holding on to. "I met you before Mark did," he said finally. "You don't remember. But I do." I blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" "It was years ago. One afternoon. You were sitting at that train station. I was coming back from a job interview. You dropped your book. Picked it up. You smiled at me. That was it. But it stayed with me. You stayed with me." He paused. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't name. "And when Mark introduced you as his girlfriend, I didn't know what to do." My mind struggled to catch up. The kitchen felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I remembered moments, small fleeting moments from that day at the station, but never thought they mattered. I never expected someone else had held on to them all these years. "So you kept a photo of me because of that one meeting?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Ryan nodded, eyes lowered. "I don't expect you to understand. It sounds crazy, I know, but I've never connected with anyone like that. Even in silence, there was something in the way you looked at me. I thought about talking to you, asking your name, but I froze. I told myself it didn't matter. Then years later, when Mark brought you home, it was like the universe was laughing at me." His voice cracked on that last part. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't calm either. My chest felt tight, like the air had grown heavier. I wanted to understand, but there was something more he wasn't saying. "Is that why you came here?" I asked. "To tell me?" "No," he said, looking at me now. "At least not just that. I came because of something else. Something I didn't want to believe." I waited, my heart pounding. "Mark's been hiding things too," he said slowly. "I didn't want to drag you into it, but you deserve to know. When I lost my job, I reached out to him. Not just for a place to stay, but for help. Financial help. I was desperate. And instead of helping, he offered me money under one condition." I stared at him, confused. "What condition?" He looked straight at me, and his words landed like a punch to the gut. "He told me to stay here and keep an eye on you." My stomach turned. "What? Why?" Ryan shook his head. "I asked the same thing." He didn't explain. Just said there were things he was suspicious of, that you weren't being honest with him, that you were hiding something. I felt dizzy. But I'm not. I've never. I know, Ryan said quickly. I never believed him. That's why I didn't tell you at first. But then things started to make less and less sense. His late-night calls. The way he changes the subject when I ask about work. I think Mark's the one hiding something. Something big. A wave of nausea washed over me. Everything I thought I knew was unraveling. I shouldn't be the one telling you this, Ryan added. But you need to know there's more going on. I've seen things. Heard things. You're not the one being watched anymore. Just then the front door creaked open. Mark was back. And from the look on his face, he'd heard everything. Mark stepped inside slowly, his keys still dangling in his hand, face unreadable. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. I didn't move. Neither did Ryan. It was like time had frozen, and none of us knew who was going to speak first, or what was about to come out. So, Mark finally said, his voice calm but sharp, you told her. Ryan straightened. She deserved to know. Mark nodded once, then set his keys on the counter with a quiet click. And what exactly did you tell her? That I asked you to keep an eye on her? That I'm hiding something? He gave a short, dry laugh. You really think you know me, Ryan? I looked at both of them, feeling like a stranger in my own kitchen. Mark, why would you ask him to watch me? What did you think I was hiding? Mark's gaze shifted to me, and for the first time, I saw something I hadn't noticed before: fear. Not anger, not suspicion. Just fear. I didn't trust you, he admitted. Not because of anything you did, but because I made a mistake. A few years ago I borrowed money. A lot. From the wrong people. I was desperate to get us out of debt, to build something better for us. But it spiraled out of control. I stared at him, stunned. They've been watching me, he said. And when Ryan showed up out of the blue, I panicked. I thought maybe you were working with them. I didn't know who I could trust. Not even you. Tears welled in my eyes. You should have just told me. I couldn't, Mark said, voice cracking. I was ashamed. It felt like the truth had dropped a weight off all our shoulders. But just as I began to feel the tension release, Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced down and his face went pale. What is it? I asked. He turned the screen toward us. It was a photo taken moments ago, of the three of us, standing in the kitchen. From outside the window. We're not alone, Ryan whispered. And just like that, everything changed again. Ryan rushed to the window and pulled the curtains shut, heart pounding. Mark grabbed his phone and started dialing. I stood still, every part of me on edge. The idea that someone had been watching us from outside, taking pictures, listening, was terrifying. But now the truth was out in the open. There was nothing left to hide. Mark called the police and explained everything. His debt, the threats, and now the photo. They took it seriously, especially when he admitted the money had come from dangerous people who'd made subtle threats before. Officers came, checked the area, and told us they'd increase patrols in the neighborhood. They couldn't guarantee we were safe, but the message had been delivered. Whoever was watching knew we were aware. That night we didn't sleep. The three of us stayed up in the living room, barely talking, just sitting together in the quiet. Something strange happened in that silence. Maybe it was the honesty, or the fear, or the years of things unsaid between brothers. But the tension faded. Mark apologized to Ryan for everything. For not being there when he needed him most. Ryan forgave him in his own quiet way. And when our eyes met, I saw no confusion, no lingering emotion, just understanding. The next morning, Ryan packed his things. He said it was time to move forward, to start fresh somewhere new without ghosts. I hugged him before he left. Not because of what we shared in the past, but because of what we survived together in the present. Mark and I had a long conversation that day. No more secrets. No more pretending. We decided to take things one day at a time, rebuild trust, and face whatever came next together. The fear hadn't vanished, but neither had the strength we found in each other. In the end, the danger passed. No more photos. No more shadows at the window. Maybe whoever was watching got scared off. Or maybe they were just reminding us how fragile peace can be. But one thing was certain. After all the secrets, the whispers, the fears, the truth saved us. And sometimes that's all it takes to start again.